Hello everyone, this is LW Gaming and welcome to a brand new installment, or I should say a rerun of the old installment I had from the CN side. This time I'm going to be covering the update for Macaera and Shem. Yep, I decided to call the characters that so-called Macaera from last time into Macaera, which makes more sense when it comes to pronunciation. But anyways, Macaera or Macaria, depending on how you're gonna pronounce her name. I'm gonna go with Macaera for simplification, and Shem, of course, just Shem. And we'll be getting this in global in about a few weeks from now. By the time recording, today is the 25th. This should be up. This update should be up and running around like the 10th or 11th, depending on which day it was. And let me check to make sure. Okay, so I checked the date. It is gonna be the 10th when this update goes live. So yep, I'm gonna be uploading this on the 7th of July, which is the official release for this episode. If you're watching this early, then you're in a treat for this. So, anyways, let's get right to what are the two heroes here that we have in this update. Spoiler alert: these ones are actually pretty optional, so you don't really need a poll for them. So just let you know. But if you really like these characters and if you want to try them out, by all means. So, anyways, let's look at the first new hero. We got Macaria or Macaria. I don't know how you're gonna pronounce her name. I'm just gonna go with Macaera. So, anyways, Macaera is from the game called Langrisser Millennium Wonderswan. And you guys don't know. If you've been playing Time Rift previously, you'll know who she is. Like she's like a assassin dancer, whoever that is. So she's gonna be like a playable character in the next update, which is nice. And her talent is called Hidden Blade Dance, and what it does, it increases her attack and crit by 10 to 25% depending on star level. After using the skill, a special terrain effect, which is a hidden blade, is created in a random empty block within one block of the skill's impact point. If an enemy unit ends its turn on this block, it will receive fixed damage equal to 1 times of Macaera's attack. And the Hidden Blade lasts for 2 turns. At the end of the turn, Macaera can choose to use Hidden Blade Dance, which will basically attack the first enemy in a straight line, dealing 0.1 times AoE damage and steals 1 buff from the target. If critical damage is scored, 1 additional buff is stolen. At the same time, the closest ally in the area gains the effect, which is crit and crit damage increased by 20% for 1 to 2 turns, depending on star level. So yeah, it's pretty straightforward. This kind of talent reminds me of Theon in a bit, but of course not the same way. It's just similar. As for factions, she's part of Origins of Light, Princess Alliance, and Meteor Strike. Makes sense because she is an assassin. Most assassins are from Meteor Strike. And her classes, of course, one of them is Assassin, and the other one is Holy. So, what class do you think she's gonna work best at? Well, the straight answer is Assassin, because to negate the possible the possible class reverse effect from Dragon Slayer. Yeah, Holy is definitely not the best choice here. But if you want to deal with demons in PvE, then Holy is decent. But in PvP, I would say go for Assassin, for of course neutralize the class advantages. And then let's move on to the next thing, which is the Macaera's unique skills. She has 3 unique skills. The first one is called Silent Blade Kiss. It's a 2C skill. This attacks 1 enemy, dealing 1.5 times damage. And during combat, Macaera ignores melee damage penalty, which is huge. So that means if you're fighting against a mage, you can just get up close to them and then deal full damage against them, while they deal less damage back at you. That's the one trick when it comes to melee damage penalty ignore, which is nice. And then after use, the next activation of the talent skill changes the area of effect, which basically attacks in 3 straight lines, and the first unit in each line receives the corresponding effects. So yeah, there's not only this one deals like decent damage on its own for a single target. This also does the ignore melee damage, and on top of that, this also upgrades your talent effect, where like instead you do 1 straight line, you do 3 straight lines, and then potentially the same thing as you normally would do for talent. That's pretty unique for that skill. Anyways, the second skill we got is a 1C skill called Illusory Dance Leap. This is a 3-turn cooldown, 7 blocks range, and it's a 1 block AoE. And this is an active skill. And when you use it allows you to move to 1 ally hidden blade effect within 7 blocks and gains the buff, which is a crit and crit damage increase by 20% for 2 turns. After use, Macaera can act again. And this one right there is like a self-act again, but it has insane range. So do I think this is really strong? Depending on the situation, I would say yes. But most of the time you might not see this like very dangerous, but it could be dangerous if used by the right hands, that is. And finally, the 3C skill, Soul Stealing Dance. This is a 3-turn cooldown, 2 blocks, and it's a single target skill. The passive on this one is that if there's an ally hidden blade effect within 2 blocks of Macaera doing an active attack, the enemy can't be guarded during combat. So this is like a guard ignore kind of scenario. Like it's kind of like it's like, imagine the hidden blade dance, the hidden blade as the Grenchio's sword, whatever that was. Yeah, has a similar properties as that, but this is like 2 blocks range. So if there's a blade within that area, oh, watch out, because Macaera is going to hit you no matter what. The tanks aren't going to save you from this. And this one basically like attacks a single enemy, dealing 1.6 times damage after combat. Macaera can teleport to an ally hidden blade effect within 7 blocks. If there are no other female enemies near the enemy within 1 block, then Macaera attacks first in combat. Also, when teleporting, she can move the attacked enemy to an adjacent block from the teleportation target. Moving the enemy is considered as displacement effect. So yeah, not only you attack them, you also pushes them around with this. But when you're pushing them, this counts as displacement. So if they have something like a electric headwear or displacement immunity, they won't get pushed around because the immunity stops it. So yeah, this can be pretty powerful if you ask me. Now I just realized it. Okay, moving forward, the bonds. Let's see what bonds does she need. So, for herself, she needs Shem as a defense for her defense bond, and then for her attack bond, you need to upgrade her class to assassin completely in her final class, of course. As for other characters, Shem will need her for his defense bond, and this is just for now. There may be more in the future. That will add more for requirements. Just keep that in mind because they usually do that for future heroes, but we will have to wait and see how it goes. And the uses for her is that she is decent for PvE, which most heroes in general are decent. As for PvP, she is okay, but mostly depends who you're fighting against. So displacement immunity is gonna put a damper on, but however, if you can make use of her full kit, she can be pretty amazing out there for PvP. Do I think she's worth it? I will say this is completely optional because there are some scenarios where Enya could erase the hidden blade with her unique 2C AoE skill. Yeah, that's the one thing I'm actually a bit concerned about if you're using Macaera out there if you heavily rely on the hidden blade, which will enable you to like guard ignore. If that got erased, then that could be a downside for you. So she is worth it, but mostly for bond unlocking for Shem, which we're gonna talk about soon. And she's more like a side grade, which is expected. Although it's not really an upgrade per se, but if you need more guard ignores, then she's not bad to pick up. So yeah, this is completely optional if you don't feel like to pull for her, but it's up to you if you need her. Okay, moving on to the next character, which is Shem. Yep, we finally had time to talk about Shem. So Shem is a AoE specialist, as far as I noticed, because most of the skills he comes with are AoE. So anyways, the talent is called Bloodline Crown, which is increases his damage dealt by 10 to 20%, depending on star level. At the end of the turn, Shem gains 1 stack of Bloodline Crown, which basically increases all his stats excluding HP of 2 to 8% for 3 turns, depending on star level, and this can be stacked up to 3 times and you cannot dispel it. After that, deals 0.1 times AoE damage to all enemies within 2 blocks. For each stack of Bloodline Crown, the damage multiplier increases by 0.05 times. So yep, the more of the stacks you have on this, the higher your multiplier will become. And also the factions he's part of are Origins of Light, Yoless Legends, and Meteor Strike. Same class lineup as Macaera, but the one faction is different here is Yoless instead of Princess. As for the classes, he's part of Infantry and Demon. Not gonna lie, both classes are decent, but if you really want to go PvP on this one, Infantry is definitely no-brainer. Because, demons could have some strengths in certain scenarios, but however, in most scenarios, if you're fighting against someone like holy units in general, yeah, Shem is not gonna do well as a demon. So if you want to fully utilize his abilities, go for infantry. Okay, next up, let's look at his skills. So unlike Macaera, Shem has 4 unique skills. Well, maybe one of them might end up being common, but we'll have to see. So anyways, one C skill is called Path of Atonement. It's a passive skill. When dealing damage to an enemy, restores 15% of max HP. If the damage was AoE, additionally reduces the cooldown of the skill with the longest cooldown by 1 turn. And this can be reduced maximum up to 3 turns per attack, which is absolutely nuts. And then another 1C skill, which is called Annihilation Slash. This is a 1-turn cooldown, 6 blocks, 1 line AoE. Attacks all enemies in a straight line, dealing 0.2 times AoE damage for each enemy and each block within defensive terrain in the area of effect. The skill range is increased by 1 block. So yeah, depending on how many enemies you hit, it's going to increase the skill range by 1 block temporarily, I think. But we'll have to see how it works here, because this is not something I've seen before. And then 2C skill, which is a Heaven's Judgment. This is a unique skill for Shem. It's a 3-turn cooldown, 2 blocks, and 2 blocks AoE. Teleports to this skill's activation point, then deals 0.3 times AoE damage to all enemies within 2 blocks. In addition, all enemies hit are afflicted with Can't Act Again and Buff Block, and this will last for 2 turns. If Shem moves 3 or more blocks before using this skill, the skill range is increased by 2 blocks. So this skill right here, even though it's not a 3C, this skill is actually absolutely dangerous. Because after you're hitting the enemies with this skill, with the AoE within 2 blocks, they are not able to receive Act Again, and also buffs either. So yep, basically it's like an anti-Act Again aura, something like that, but it's a debuff. So if you end up having this debuff on them, wow, you're going to be in the favor of your battle, because your opponent is probably not going to read and then ends up wasting their Act Agains. So yeah, if you're out there in PvP, always read, because there are more units now that are having anti-Act Again. So be careful. And finally, the 3C skill, Doombind Judgment. It's a 5-turn cooldown, 3 blocks, hence a single target. And this is a command skill. All allies dispel 1 buff from the affected enemies after dealing AoE damage. Each time this effect triggers, Shem gains 1 stack of Bloodline Crown, which is huge in many cases, because if you he works best as an AoE compartment, like I said earlier. And if you have allies that can do AoE, it's gonna capitalize his abilities. And then the physical damage on here is that it teleports to the nearest empty block next to an enemy and it attacks them, dealing 1.6 times damage. When attacking from a distance, soldiers will also attack. Before combat, dispels 5 buffs from the target after combat. Shem gains the following effect: reduces damage by 50% from enemies' attacks within 2 blocks radius. Before combat, deals 0.25 times AoE damage to all enemies within 2 blocks radius. And this will last for 2 turns, and you cannot dispel it. For each stack of Bloodline Crown, the range of this skill increases by 1 block, and damage dealt is increased by 7% in combat. So let's see. Okay, so basically it's like a buff that you cannot dispel. Okay, makes sense, I guess. I was just wondering, is that a debuff or buff? But no, it was a buff for himself. That saying cannot be dispelled. Okay, so this one right here sounds really powerful. So it does single target attack, but at the same time, this also does AoE after, like before combat. Of course, if you had the buff, that is. So after combat, he'll gain the buff that basically like reduces the damage taken by 50, and then when before he entered combat, he was gonna do AoE damage. Yeah, absolutely nuts. And also, the more stacks of Bloodline Crown he has, the bigger his AoE will be, which is absolutely crazy. Okay, moving on. Let's look at what bonds he has. So for himself, he needs Macaera for his defense bond, and for his attack bond, he needs to upgrade to his infantry class, which is recommended for PvP. And then for other characters' bonds, Macaera needs him for defense bond. And this is just for now, which like basically more heroes might need Shem in the future, but we'll have to wait and see. And then for uses, PvE, he is decent. Like I mentioned earlier, PvE, most heroes do shine. They do shine in this kind of field. But for PvP, he is good in battle settings. In this battle setting with flexible AoE skills and single target skills. And if you really need to use him pretty well, you're gonna need Macaera to fully capitalize his bonds. And then is he worth it? It's actually comes in both ways. So if you don't really care about PvP, this is absolutely optional. But if you're a PvP player, I would say yes, you need a pull for this one. But however, if you want to pull for Shem, might as well pick up Macaera for bonds, of course. He is somewhat worth pulling for due to his unique kit. And if you're pulling for him and for PvP, you'll also need Macaera for bonds. So yeah, if you need Shem, you obviously need Macaera for his bond. Just to keep that in mind. If you need like a specific character, like most heroes that got released so far requires the banner mate in order for you to capitalize their abilities. Okay, moving on. Let's talk about the new SP soldiers this time around. First off, we got Bishop, and what this soldier does is that it has like a basically just like most of the magic soldiers. They basically like their normal attacks is treated as magic, and the healing effect is increased by 15%, which is the same as their initial form. When soldiers' HP is above 80%, all allies within 2 blocks of the unit gains defense and MDef of 10% increase, which is a decent upgrade. And there's no additional heroes that will be able to unlock this. So yep, basically there's no additional challenge to unlock SP bishops. So yep, do I think this one is worth getting? Yeah, it's okay, but the downside is it doesn't unlock new heroes, so just keep that in mind. And then the other SP soldier, we got Orc Berserker. Like this is probably the first time I ever seen is that 2 SP soldiers that does not get additional heroes. Usually we'll get like at least one SP soldier with no additional heroes, but this update there are 2 of them that doesn't have additional heroes. So we got Orc Berserker as the second one in this update. Soldiers' attack increased by 30%. When entering melee combat, soldiers' attack is further increased by 15%. After combat, deals fixed damage equal to 15% of enemy's max HP. Oh man, that sounds pretty dirty. And of course, doing it this way is it doesn't mean it'll be able to kill, but we'll have to see. And like I said earlier, this doesn't add additional heroes. And finally, the third SP soldier unlock is Royal Cavalry. The soldier skill for this one is that the higher the soldier's HP, the less physical damage they take, up to a max of 45% damage reduction. When soldier's HP is above 70%, attack and MDef is increased by 20%. And the additional heroes that can use this are Tyrantel, Christian, Rosalia, Lanford, and Zion. So do I think this soldier is worth getting? Yes, in many scenarios, especially for tanks. Like the Royal Cavalry as used to be the best soldier for Landias, like tanks per se. But now, since they added even more heroes that has a tank role, be able to use this, that will make the soldier very flexible. So I can imagine more people will be running Tyrant Tail with Royal Cavalry SP, and Christian with Royal Cavalry SP as well. Anyways, we'll have to wait and see how they will do it in PvP. So I'm feeling this is going to be really fun, but at the same time, it may be chaotic, depending on how you're going to take it as. Okay, moving forward, let's look at the banners. So first week, obviously, we were expecting Macaera and Shem's debut, and this will start on the 10th of July all the way to August 6th. And then for week 2, we'll be expecting Theon and the Norn raid-up banner. This will be starting on the 17th of July all the way to the 30th of July. And also alongside that, there's going to be Langrisser 1 to 5 Heroes banner. And then on week 3, we'll be expecting a raid-up banner for Ymir and Hoffman, starting on the 24th of July all the way to August 6th. And then also Destiny banner featuring Andriole, Seraphina, and Clotaire. And the Wish banner for Mobile 1 and Mobile 2 heroes. And finally, on the 4th week, we'll be expecting two Destiny banners. Starting on the 31st of July, we'll be expecting Girl Nichelle, Rosalia, and Patricia on one of the Destiny banner. And the other Destiny banner features Landias, Yulia, and Jugler. And then the Wish banner for Tensei heroes will be there as well. And then the end date for that 4th week is on the 13th of August. So yep, you have a lot of plans to think about whether if you want to pull on this major update or not. So if any of you guys have missed certain characters in the past, like Andriole, Seraphina, Clotaire, anybody in the Destiny banner pool, as you see there, they are worth the grabs if you have missed them the first time. Otherwise, you can just skip them if you don't need them. But this is a good opportunity for you to get them if you missed them before. Anyways, let's move on to the next part, which is what events/changes to expect. Spoiler alert, the changes that were listed here are already in the game, so just keep that in mind. Anyways, the event for this time we are expecting are Forbidden Battleground, and on week 1, all Anarchy gyms will be open. Week 2, we'll be expecting all casting stages open. And then week 3, Secret Run Revival and Floating Around Phenomenon event on week 3. And then week 4, we got Daily Gold event for additional gold, of course. Then nothing worth catching here, but it's just that Forbidden Battleground might be the big thing to note here, because that means more controller points for everyone, of course, which is great. And next up, let's talk about the new confession and exclusive. So first off, exclusive. So this update is going to add Andriole's exclusive, increases his HP by 10% after casting Oath Loyalty on an ally. Andriole additionally gains all faction effects of the target ally, and when moving through any unit, negates mobility consumption 1 block, and this can only be done once. So just keep that in mind, of course for balance purposes. When Oath Loyalty ally initiates combat but fails to defeat the enemy, Andriole gains hostility for 2 turns. So this is kind of like a double-edged sword. So you can use this as long as your tank is close to the Oath ally, this should be fine because you will be able to do guard ignore on Andriole's next action if you send in your Oath ally in first. But it just depends on the scenario here. Otherwise, this could just end up being bad, straight up bad. Because if you just being a AoE rush player or whatever, or just single target rush, this might not help in certain scenarios because basically your ally is pretty much dead if they're out there, and there's no way of jumping back. But there are some things in scenario where you could actually do that as long as you gave them the bell, that is. So if you give them the bell and they activate that thing, they should be fine. But in most scenarios, Andriole will get angry when the ally dies, and this will probably change nothing. So yeah, that's the one thing I'm actually a bit worried about because, Andriole, this is a nice boost for him, but at the same time, this also could be nothing, actually. Okay, the next new confession for this update is Saffrine. Last time we got is no Norin. Makes sense for Saffrine to have it as well. Okay, moving on, let's look at the next thing, which is a new casting skills. Two new ones, actually. The first one is Isara. This is like an underwhelming buff for her, but it's a decent one, but not a lot to bring her to Apex. Sadly, that's not going to be the case for her. So anyways, Isara basically increases her attack and defense by 5%. The range and spam of AoE skills is increased by 1 block. Pretty decent, but not the best for PvP. Because it's basically the same thing, no additional effects that can give an extra oomph out there. So yeah, Isara is still going to be bad in PvP. I'm just sad to say because this is the truth, and it really hurts. I do like Isara as a character, but here's the thing: the buffs that SR's got in the past, like the casting skills per se, some are decent, but most of the time they're just straight up garbage. It's just really unfortunate they will stay dead after this. And then for Theon, his kind of a bit of a step up, so because he's an SSR, makes sense for him to have that. But anyways, attacking and crit is increased by 5%. After retrieving Spinner, for each stack of fracture on the affected enemies, each spinner deals 0.5 times of Theon's attack as fixed damage that ignores immunity. This right there is a big step up for Theon's fixed damage. So like, even though if your opponent does have something like a swordsman metal or anything that prevents fixed damage, this type of fixed damage will directly ignore that, which they will still take it, which is surprising enough. Do I think Theon's gonna come back to PvP? Well, maybe. It just depends on what box he's slotted in, because he is probably best suited for AoE Rush, but at the same time, if you're not Theon player, then you don't have to worry about much about this, but you just have to be careful if you're fighting against him, because his fixed damage is not going to get ignored, no matter what. And finally, before we close off this episode, there's a bit of a reminder for what's going to be coming after this update. So the next update, we'll be expecting the well-anticipated LR hero, which you probably know who is that going to be, because the next LR hero is Gay Succubus, or known as LR of Ferrokia. And I gotta say, she is absolutely unhinged. And you wanna know why? Because she can mess with your class. In case you guys don't remember how Ferrokia works in her SR form, she can switch forms, like from like demon class to any class that she attacks like on the enemy. So for example, if the enemy is infantry, lance, cavalry, like any other class other than demon, she's gonna transform into that class, even bosses, which is absolutely crazy. But however, the Ferrokia in this form takes that to the next level. So what it means is that she can not only transform her class into any class she wants at ease, she can also mess with your class too, which will basically treat it as like a certain debuff. But however, they're not really debuffs, but rather a buff. So if you're trying to heal off your allies while trying to get that class change removed, sadly that's not going to work because the healing only dispels debuffs, while Ferrokia's situation is more like a buff even for the enemies. So yeah, if you try to dispel that, then that's not going to work, unfortunately. Also, another thing to note here in this update is that, remember in the global version where Serena's introduction to the game, she is unvoiced. Well, in this update, Serena will finally be voiced, so just as Zilong may promised in the in-game mail. So to those who haven't read that already, please give it a read if you haven't already, because I noticed that some of you still message to Zilong about this, and some people just got annoyed of like how players just completely ignore the fact that they actually acknowledge this as an issue, but some people just refuse to read in their mail. So please read your in-game mail before you make your feedback, because whenever I saw something in the feedback channel like that, I was like, did you seriously not see what was sent to your mail? It's like in IRL, of course, I cannot take this as IRL or anything. It's just that you got the mail, but it's just like, when you got the mail, you're usually supposed to read that, but In most cases, you think it's a waste of time and ends up like no, don't read them. Uh, okay, that's the one frustration I had in mind. But anyways, that's all it from me. So hope y'all find this video helpful or informative. And what do you guys think about this update? This update is gonna be really wild, I gotta say, especially the next one after this. Okay, and until then, see y'all next time.